Thanks for having me, guys. It's fun to be here.
It's amazing to have you. So just for the little bit of backstory, everyone, Kip Kroeger was a producer in Hollywood who we brought specifically for this festival, which is a great honor to have you here, is someone that I was lucky enough to go to high school with. And this is the fun part, is that I went to film school. And Kip, tell everyone what you studied.
I have a biology degree. It's been very useful.
And he carved out the most incredible path due to clearly your talents and doggedness. And the other thing is that every month of my life, especially since we started this festival, I think 3 years ago, actually 4, but anyway, I get someone, a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, or uncle who say, my niece, son, grandson, daughter, nephew, went to film school, please, can they talk to you? And I always say yes, and they never follow up, right, film people? But now, my hope is that with this interview, that Kip can explain to all of you, and then we'll record it, it'll live on YouTube, and you'll all understand how you can do it in Hollywood. At least one way, right? Because there's no cut and dried.
No, the big secret is that nobody knows what we're doing.
Exactly. So, okay. And also because I have dreams of being James Lipton. Anyone?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So anyway, biology degree, but you did make a documentary in college, correct? You produced a documentary did it premiere at Telluride?
Well, so it was, I started with a computer science degree plan. I had realized quickly that I didn't do so great at actually doing any programming, and I just like to talk to people, and so I had to get out of that. So after a couple of years, I switched to biology, which, as you can see, was very effective in the long run. But I linked back up with a buddy that we went to high school with, and we had done a bunch of projects in high school, and he said, look, if you ever want to do stuff again, let's talk. And so during the summers, we started doing things. This was our film school, I guess. We sort of just made it up as we went. So we got together and we made a bunch of music videos one summer and kind of flipped every circuit breaker in the house and pissed off all the neighbors and did all the things that you weren't supposed to do, but we learned what worked and what didn't. And so the next year he goes, hey, look, if we're gonna do this for real, we gotta go to California. And I go, really? But I'm in North Carolina and they've got studios here. And he goes, no, man, if we're gonna do it, we gotta go. And so we went out, and thanks to some family friends of his, we got internships. But while we were there, we decided to make this documentary. And so we started talking about it, and it was about this school in Soweto, South Africa, which is off of Johannesburg, for children at risk. And we ultimately went that summer. We were there for 2.5 weeks. We filmed all 50, 60 hours of footage, and then came back, and for the next year, worked on it, separately. So he would edit pieces and send them down, and so while we were in school, we were looking at stuff and going back and forth. And then as soon as we graduated, we pretty much moved to LA the next month and kind of kept working on the documentary and kept doing things there. And so we ultimately sold it to HBO, and it was on HBO Family, I think, for a little while. And that was kind of the beginning of that. So I did that, and then I got my first PA job at kind of the same time, and so it was sort of the beginning of a little bit of a ride.
Well, and I'm still fascinated as to how you determined that this school in South Africa was something you wanted to make a movie about. That's interesting.
We got really lucky. I mean, look, so Charlie's mom, my friend Charlie, was on the board of a charity, and so when she went to South Africa, someone on the part of her charity said, hey, you talked to Charlie, my friend, and goes, are you making documentaries? And he goes, yeah. I am. And they go, by the way, you have to understand, my friend Charlie says yes to everything. Do you do this? Yeah, of course I do. Are you good at it? Oh, the best. It's a gift because you believe him. You really do. And so he goes out there and they go, you should see this school. It's amazing. And so he went and he just took a little camcorder and just interviewed a couple of the kids and just talked to them and the woman that runs the school. And one of the kids, this guy Victor, who was sort of the kid in charge of the school. He was sort of the head of the school's assistant, and he was a student, but he also helped run the place. And he's on camera and he goes, and Charlie said to me, what do you want people to know? He goes, I want them to know how we live here. I think it could change the world. And he says it in this way, he looks right down the barrel of the camera. And Charlie called me at 3 in the morning and he goes, we're doing this, we have to make this. And I go, what are you talking about? Where are you? He goes, I've just seen the most amazing thing, the most amazing people, we have to make this film. I go, that sounds really cool, like why don't you tell me about it when you get back to the States? And I went back to sleep. And he came back and the first day I saw him, he goes, I gotta show you this. And he puts the tape in and hands me the camcorder. And you see this kid talk and you immediately are pulled in. You know, like these people are special, they're doing something special, they're helping people, and it's powerful. And so that kind of it pulled us in.
Which is your beginning of your career as a producer. And am I reading this correctly? You won a prize at Telluride for this film?
We won an award at Mountain Film in Telluride.
That's
So not
amazing.
the actual Telluride Film Festival. We got recognized at Mountain Film. I think it was, there's a film festival in Indianapolis. We got an award. There was a couple smaller festivals that were nice enough to give us a shot and let us come in and show it.
It's a great start, anyway.
Yeah,
Right? It's pretty impressive, right? Okay, so then when you say, then you started off as a PA, because people are always asking, right, how do I start? So maybe explain to the good people of the future of the internet who are gonna watch this. What does that entail?
Look, I was, again, everything is if you get a break, what can you do with it? And I was lucky enough to have a chance when we got to LA, thanks to Charlie's family and friends, to sit down and have 5 minutes with a TV showrunner. This guy's name is Bill Lawrence, okay? This name will come up a lot more while I'm talking, believe me. He created Scrubs, and since then he's created Cougar Town, and Ted Lasso, and Shrinking, and Bad Monkey, and just a list of shows. Created Spin City when he was 28 years old. And he was nice enough to give us 5 minutes. He comes in and he sits down and he goes, what do you guys want to do? And I said, well, we want to be producers. And he's like, you writers, you not writers? I said, not a writer. Very confident, not a writer. And he goes, all right, cool, you should do what my producing partner Randall did. So Randall started in post-production. He worked his way up to run post, and then he came over, he now produces all my shows. I go, well, that sounds awesome. I'll do that. And he goes, all right, so that's great, I'm happy for you. Good. Look, I've got a pilot coming up, and I got a couple PA jobs if you want. My hand went up fast as I could get it up there. And he goes, all right, cool, I'll give you a call, we'll get you on there. And so I went, I got a call a couple weeks later, and I was a set PA on a doomed pilot that was never gonna go forward, and had the best time ever. It was funny, the people were nice, and from that, at the end of it, because a pilot, no one knows what's gonna happen. You shoot these things, and it may go nowhere, or it could run for 10 years, you never know. But at the end of it, I finally, I'm pacing in front of Bill's office. He's sitting in there trying to work, and I'm just walking back and forth in front of the door, back and forth, waiting for a chance to go in. He goes, you need something, man? I go, hey, I just want to say thanks so much, man. This is the best job I've ever had. I've had the most fun ever. I work for you guys till the end of time. This is the best thing ever. He goes, that's great. I'm glad you had a good time. I go, I've got an offer to go be a runner at this production company, and it's like a feature producers company, but I don't want to miss out. He goes, look, dude, this is a pilot. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. I don't have a job for you. And one of the rules you got to follow in this world, in this industry especially, is if you got a job, you got to take it, because you never know what's going to happen. He goes, take the job, and if we have something, open up. I'll find you. I'll give you a call, and we'll get you back. I said, oh, thank you so much. This was amazing. So I leave, and I'm excited, okay, because I'm going to get a PA. I'm going to get a runner job, which is going and getting coffees, lunches, and stuff for this feature producer. This guy's won an Oscar. They're legit. There's 10 people in the company. I go, oh man, this is where I need to be. 10 people in the company, they're gonna, all you do is show them you're smart, you know what you're doing, and the sky's the limit. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I was there for a month and realized how bad a mistake I had, how my assumptions were all wrong about this place. And I hated it. And it was.
Wait, could you expound on that? Is it something to do with like the culture, or is it just a personality thing?
It's all of it. So look, the bad, touchstone for everybody at that time was Swimming with Sharks, the movie. And it's this idea of working for a producer who's a little intense and yells a lot and berates the assistants, and that was the culture. And I didn't like it. It wasn't fun. And so I started questioning everything, because remember, I've never taken a film class. I've only got my little tiny bit of experience, and I came out here thinking we were just gonna knock the world over. And I'm sitting there going, I would drive into work and go, what am I doing? This is awful. I hate this. I've questioned every decision I made and was really trying to figure out what I was going to do at this point because I made all the wrong choices and probably need to rethink my entire path. And I got a call that Scrubs had a post-PA position, which is a different runner, but in post-production on the show, but it was back with Bill and those guys. And I went in that day, I quit, I said I'm out, and I took that job and never looked back, and that changed everything.
Right, so you were almost gonna leave Hollywood,
Yeah.
basically, because of it, because it's true, there are a lot of notorious abusive producers or, execs or studio heads or whatever, and so.
And in any industry. I mean, nobody wants to be in any job where they're getting screamed at all the time. And this was just because there was, I was so early in, I was like, well, maybe I just blew it. This was the bad choice. Get out while I can.
Okay, so that was on Scrubs. I've got notes here, people. I have short film producer. So you were also doing your own stuff at the same time, which I think is very interesting for the children at home to know that even when you have the legit job, you do have time to do your own creative projects during those years, to 2007 to 2011.
Well, so Scrubs kind of became my film school. Like I said, we kind of just tried it on our own time and tried to make things and learn that way. Scrubs really became film school because when I got on that show, it was season 5, and they were filming it in this abandoned, disgusting hospital in North Hollywood. And I mean it. There were rats running on the cable wires, on the wires. They found a possum in the writer's room at the beginning of the season. I mean, it was gross. Nobody ever bothered us. But we had our own space. So the writers were there, post-production was there. All the sets were everywhere in the hospital. You would come into work one day to try and get to your office, and they're like, you gotta wait until they finish this scene because your office isn't being used to shoot. And that's just what it was. But the cool thing was, because Bill and Randall were so good to us, we would be able to shoot shorts. So me and other assistants and other PAs and writers, sometimes we would produce these short films. We would shoot in the hospital on the weekends sometimes. So we would, convince them to let us come in and borrow some equipment. We'd pay people a little bit of money to come make sure we didn't, break anything. And then we'd go in there and shoot films, and we did it for 3 or 4 years. And that was our chance to kind of see what we were learning on our day-to-day and then apply it ourselves. And that was really fun. We learned a lot doing those.
And what I think is incredible, that is an important distinction, is that there are so many different kinds of producer, right? And I feel like that's one of the things that I want to touch on during this talk, is that you're short film producer, which could mean anything from right? Casting to the locations to the equipment to.
Well, but like on a small projects, everybody does everything, right? Like the rules are not as strict on that when everyone has to help out.
And then after that, I think very fruitful period for you were doing all the short films and working on Scrubs, you become an associate producer on Retired at 35, Malibu Country.
This was the TV Land years.
Yeah, St. George and the X's. Is there any one of those projects that you want to talk about, or anecdotes from that period that are interesting?
Well, I mean, look, there's always fun stories from being able to work with all these people. But the cool thing about that was the first time for me that I got to be in charge of the department. So I had worked on this show Falling Skies, which was for DreamWorks with Noah Wyle, and it was this awesome alien show. It was the coolest thing I'd ever gotten to do. And I was like, this is really exciting. And at the end of that, I got a call from a friend I had done a pilot with. He goes, hey, do you want to come run the post department on this little multicam show for TV Land? And it was my first chance to kind of be in charge of it. I'd been doing my little shorts and doing my little project, but this was my first chance to do it, for real. And so I went and jumped in with these guys and linked up with another group of producers who were very prolific and working really hard, and was able to, for the next 5 years, I basically did post for all their shows, and so it was, the X's was one, and then we went and did this Reba McEntire show with Lily Tomlin called Malibu Country, and then I went back to TV Land and did more shows, but it was all the same kind of thing. It was multicam, so we were doing it with an audience, which is fun. It's a different type of show. It was like the original show I had done, when I was first showed up. And it's fun to be with an audience, and everything's really close, and so you get to see a lot more that way.
Okay, and also for the children at home, what is post-production? And right, Tell us a
Sure.
little bit more, like, let's make it educational, you know?
Look, and this is dovetails with where I am now, is I oversee post-production for all of Bill Lawrence's shows. So the punchline of Bill giving me that first job is I kind of have been like a mosquito that won't go away and just buzzing around, and every time he's like, well, we're gonna go, I'll do it, I got it, I'll do it. So now I oversee post-production for all of his shows, and I line through shrinking, and what that ends up meaning is all of the production and filming of it is stuff that we're all kind of talking about. Bill's company is very small, there's only like 10 people in that one, but it's all great people. It's the environment that I dreamed you would have in a small company. And once they finish filming it, we have to edit it, put music, get the music in, pick songs, we color correct, visual effects, delivery, and then in our world, because Bill treats the editing process like a final rewrite, it's an important part. And so we're lucky enough to go and spend a lot of time in the edit bays, trying to find new jokes, trying to find new ways to make it funnier, better. Like we did this show Bad Monkey recently, that is based
Filmed here, yeah.
based down here in Florida. We're actually going down to Key West next week to shoot more for this season. And one of the big things we did in season 1 was it was always planned to have a soundtrack based on Tom Petty, because Carl Hyacin loved Tom Petty through the book.
He's from
He wrote the
Florida.
book. He's from Florida. Petty's from Florida. A lot of nature and conservation is a part of it. And both the principles they believed in. So we took Tom Petty's catalog and had covers. We did 20 covers of Tom Petty songs across the whole season. And so if you watch that show and we put out a soundtrack, sometimes you don't even notice it's a Petty song. But that's the type of stuff. We edit all these episodes and we go, all right, now we gotta figure out how to get these Petty songs in. And so we were sitting there trying to figure out what type of cover and which lyrics worked and play with the whole thing. So long way of saying there's all these different parts of post, but it all comes together one way or the other.
And it's extremely creative. I mean, I don't know a single filmmaker who doesn't love music. And music changes so much the mood of a film. I'm looking at Ivan, he's like, yep. Ivan is the producer of Mistura, which was the opening film here.
Congratulations.
Which is fantastic, a Peruvian film, very beautifully shot, and the music is great. So, I remember when I was in LA shooting my short Night of the Living Data, you were just starting with Undateable, and this seemed to be a turning point for you, that particular show, is that right?
Well, the fun part about Undateable, so I went 5 years and did all these TV Land multicams and stuff, and I didn't work with Bill for a while. So I left and got a call, and they said, hey, the guy that runs Post is about to go in-house and work at the studio. Do you want to come back and do one of these shows? And so I was excited to go back and work with Bill again. So I said yes and jumped at it. And it was Undateable, which was a sitcom, another audience show, but it was with like 4 comedians were the cast. And so these guys were always just adding jokes and extending bits. It was hilarious. And so I did season 2, and I came back, and then at the end of season 2, we decided to try and do a live episode. So that's, SNL style, so straight to broadcast. And that's hard to do when you're doing a sitcom, because you have to fit a story into this 21 minutes and 30 seconds. And you have to make it funny, and now you get no go-backs. And so you have to complete the story, make sure it's funny, and get it right. And we did well with the finale, and then convinced them to do a whole season of it. So our 3rd season of Undateable, I was laughing backstage as we were getting ready to do this, and we were trying to get everything together, and it reminded me, when we did that show, we learned the value of a minute. And we were sitting there one week, and Undateable would, we did an East Coast show and a West Coast show. So at 5 o'clock, you were live on air. And at 4:58, we had Tony Hawk there, who was gonna ride a skateboard around for the main titles. And he's looking around and he's going, it'd be really cool if you guys could give me a ramp. I could come down the back stairs, down this way, over here into the next set and carry the sign. We're like, well, that'd be fun. And we looked around, we got 3 minutes, construction! And they run over, they go, can we get a ramp to come down the stairs? They go, yeah, how long we got? We got 2 minutes. Yeah, we got it, it's fine. So they're over there hammering together, and the song starts, and they're literally rolling the beginning of the credits. And the construction guys are finishing pounding the nails in and getting off stage, and then Tony Hawk comes right down the thing and runs it.
Amazing, breathtaking moment, I'm sure, in your career.
It was so fun.
But
So
I mean,
fun.
it reminds me of that movie Saturday, about the first Saturday Night Live that ever aired, and they're putting the bricks into the ground right before they start.
Constantly, we would change things out, you know, they would have commercial breaks and Bill would call the whole cast together and go, all right, we're running fast, so when you do this bit where you're an elephant, double it, just go long and just expand on it, have some fun with it, you know, and then they do the next commercial break, go, well, we went too long, all right, so now we get to this, you have to do the short version of this sort of exchange, you know, and so we were adjusting stuff all the time. We had a social media lounge on set, so we had influencers, because this is back in like when Periscope is before Instagram Live even. And we had people live streaming on set. They would be background and they'd be live streaming stuff from being on set. Then we put a live phone in the middle of the set with a number we shared on the air and people would call it. And so Chris D'Elia picked it up one time. It's like, I'm busy right now, hung up in the middle of the scene. So we were always trying to push the envelope. That's sort of been the fun part of it. We always try and find different ways to, you know, expand and test the limits of what we're doing.
Okay, so from there, I have executive producer of 30 Nothing. Well, how was that show? How did that treat you?
That was my friends and I deciding that we wanted to make something of our own, and we wanted to do it in a way that was fun. It was an excuse to hang out together. So we said, all right, we're gonna try and make a web series, and we're gonna give ourselves some rules. We have to be able to shoot an episode in one day. We don't go back and do anything. We just have to work with whatever we get. It's just with our friends, nothing else. We write it, produce it, direct it, edit it, do everything just ourselves, and we see what happens. And if it's any good, then it's fun, and if it's not, then oh well, we tried. And so we made 5 or 6 of them at our houses in like the backyard or at someone's place, and we had a blast. You know, trying to see if we could create a show out of that. So it was fun.
I mean, I think that's incredibly encouraging for anybody who would be on this path as the part of post or a set PA or something, that you can graduate to making your own things as an executive producer and not lose that, I guess, passion for creating your own work, right?
Well, a lot of it, you know, one of the things that happens as with anybody that gets a job is if you really love it, you start to see the things you want to do next. You know, you always see, oh, well, I love it. If I work hard, I'll get to the point where I get to do this. And so with filmmaking, that's kind of what's always happening is, you know, you get to a point where I'm a post-production coordinator, you know, and so I'm responsible for all this paperwork and really nothing of the fun creative stuff, but I watch everyone else doing it and I go, I bet I could do it. So you gather your friends together and on the weekend, we go try and do it ourselves. And it was always a chance to give everybody the opportunity to try to swing above their weight class, you know, and go, I bet you we can do this as well as anybody else can. And if we did, it worked out. And if we didn't, well, nobody knew. So it didn't, no big loss.
And then you move on to the one that's standing out is there's Casey Undercover, Life Sentence, and Roseanne. Roseanne's a big show. How was that for you? What was your experience on that show?
Well, that was an adventure because the Roseanne quickly became the Connors, as people may or may not know. And so but rebooting that was special because there was a lot of great history there and they brought back a lot of the original writers and the whole cast and all that kind of stuff. And our job was mostly to recreate the vibe and recreate the atmosphere so it felt like the old show just picked up 20 years later. And it worked because the Connors ran for 6-7 years and it was awesome. And they were as good as they ever were and the stories were just as good and it's informed, you know, I think a lot of reboots because that one worked successfully, you know, and so that's what we're doing with Scrubs, you know, is trying to pick right up where we left off, excluding that 9th season, and feel just like you were in Sacred Heart 20 years later, you know, and if you can kind of recreate that exact kind of rhythm and atmosphere and stuff, I think people, if they like the original, end up enjoying the reboot.
I mean, yeah, I feel like that happened with some features too, like the Coming to America reboot and stuff like that. The nostalgia is strong for the movies and TV shows that we grew up with, of course, you know. All right, and then you move on to Whiskey Cavalier and Florida Girls. Can you tell me about those?
All right, so Whiskey Cavalier was special. It's funny, you know, when you work on, when you do kind of like I did, where you sort of slowly move your way up and keep trying to do a little bit more and get more responsibility, there's a point, you know, where you look around and you go, man, I want to do stuff that I feel some ownership of. That's where all these short films keep coming into play, you know, one of these projects that we do on the side. And you're like, I want to get to that point where my day job, I'm feeling ownership over it, where I feel like I'm having a real impact in it. And Whiskey Cavalier kind of was this little glimmer of that for me, because this was a show for ABC that we made. We shot it in Prague, and it was an action comedy. Now, action comedies are hard to put together by themselves, but to do it for an ABC drama was kind of special. And we had this amazing cast. It was Scott Foley and Lauren Cohan, who was in The Walking Dead. And it was genuinely funny, and the production value was through the roof. We had this guy, Peter Atencio, directing over there. And the show was really fun. And because it was such a big show, and everyone was over in Prague, stuff would come into post, and we just had to kind of figure it out quickly. So I finally started to get to do things where I felt a little bit of ownership of it and got excited about it, and I thought the show was really cool. When it got canceled after one season, we were all pretty bummed out, and that was the funny part about it is, as that show got canceled, we were sitting there going, man, like this really sucks. Like this show was special, the people were good, the content was good. Like
actors are
can't believe that we're not going to get to do more of these. And I called this guy Jeff Ingold, who produces all of Bill's shows. He runs this company for him, and I go, this sucks, man. He goes, yeah. He goes, well, we got to focus. The next project up is this new show. He's like, we'll see how this goes. It's our first show with Apple. It's called Ted Lasso. He goes, I'll send you the script and let's see, let's start planning and getting our heads wrapped around how this is going to work. And we had no idea what we were walking into there. And that was the funny thing about that was that show. It's sort of the laws of unintended consequences. Bill had sent the script for the show Bad Monkey to Jason Sudeikis to get him to star in it.
You wanted him to be Vince Vaughn's role.
And Jason got it, and it was like, I don't know. They sat down, and he goes, I don't think that's the right fit for me, but I have this other project I'd love to talk to you about if you got a sec. And Bill's like, oh, sure, what is it? And he pitched him Ted Lasso. And the rest is history. Bill got on board with that, and flash forward another year, and we're making that show. So you never know how it's all going to play out.
So when did you, I remember seeing the people on the red carpet for Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and one of the actors whose name escapes me, but he plays the husband, Mrs. Maisel. And they said to him, well, did you know what you had? And he goes, yes, we knew what we had. Did you, when you had Ted Lasso in your hands, like the script and the rushes and whatever, did you know what you had? Like, was it clear that it was just gonna like be this incredible success, or?
We knew it felt good to us, and the whole thing. I remember when we put it out, and it was amidst COVID. Like there was this crazy time of getting the show done and getting it out there. It was this feeling of like, I hope this resonates with people. Like you never know. It was also a time when a lot of the shows that were doing really well were edgier, darker, and so there was that a little bit of like, this is not a dark, edgy show, like this is going against the grain a little bit, but it feels like it matters to us. It feels like it's got a lot of heart, which is what Bill's shows have always had. And Jason's an amazing Ted Lasso that you just fall in love with. And so we put it out just hoping people would get it, and no idea,
Right, the old Hollywood adage is nobody knows anything, which means they don't know how it's gonna land. But in fact, I think the pandemic was so depressing that we needed something with heart and hope and all that, and just a fun time. So I want to talk also about these projects that I guess were parallel to Ted Lasso. I guess you were still doing The Connors and Dave, just because I think he's hysterical.
He's so funny.
Good Lord.
He's so funny.
Does everybody know him, what I'm talking about?
Lil Dicky.
Yeah,
Lil Dicky, yes.
He's very funny, and he comes from music videos where you focus on every frame of everything, and being a rapper as well. He was so detail oriented, and they partnered him with Jeff Schaefer, who runs Curb Your Enthusiasm, who's also brilliant. And together, those guys were the engine that made that show what it was. It was really special. Figuring that out and watching them work through the creative process was really cool.
There are a lot of shows here that are worth rewatching, for all of you.
Well, and those were also like Dave, The Connors, and Ted Lasso were all when COVID hit.
Right.
So we were in the middle of airing The Connors when that hit. We were halfway through Dave being released, and Ted Lasso we were in the middle of editing, and so we had to pivot and sort of work remotely and deliver shows. It was a whole adventure.
a logistical thing that you figured out, right? And now you can do
You always
anything
do one way or
remote.
another.
Right. But, okay, so then Ted Lasso becomes what it becomes, and tell me, there's this idea, right, that you do what you do because of the everyday, not for the recognition or not for the award isn't the end game. But talk to me about the award. Like, what was it like to be at the Emmys? I mean,
Surreal.
come
The
on.
whole thing was surreal. It's never anything I had even imagined being able to do. You walking out there on the carpet and hearing on the show called out, your mind kind of fries for a minute. There's no idea what's going on. It was surreal, and it was very special, and it was for a special show, and it was in the midst of all of the COVID stuff. The first year we won was Terry couldn't even come with me to the thing, and we went up there, and it was very carefully, like everyone was spaced out and all these rules and stuff. It was awesome, and the chance to sort of celebrate the show and what it's about was it was special. It was really special.
I think he deserves a round of applause for that. So here I have Bad Monkey, which you told us about, and which is still going, which is exciting, right? So we have a whole other season coming?
Yeah. So Bad Monkey just finished filming in LA this week, and we're coming down to film in Key West for the next couple weeks, and it'll probably be out later this year. And then Ted Lasso should be out, they said, this summer. They just announced that the other day. Shrinking just started coming out this past week, so plenty more of those coming.
Now, there's only one Kip Kroeger, so how do you do 3 shows at the same time? This is the part I'm trying to figure out.
It's like I said, we've got a really good team of people kind of at the core of this. All the post-production sort of falls into my world, and a lot of it is managing what is the most important. We try and stagger it out to make it manageable, and Bill works harder than anybody I know, and and we have a lot of fun. I mean, it's funny, like most of you guys, let's be honest, I get paid to watch TV. I show up, we sit in a room, we get to watch TV all day and try and make it funnier, and then I go home. It's awesome. We've got these shows kind of staggered out. We've got, great people in all of them that are running the writers' rooms and production, directors, and we're just trying to get them done just in time is kind of our motto, just barely in time.
I'm very excited. This is all on IMDb, this is public information. I haven't done any incredible investigating or research. But I was very excited to see that you worked on a project called Las Tres Sisters. So tell me about that project. Is it like crossover, Mexican, American, what is it?
So that was special. Cristo Hernandez, who was in Ted Lasso, came to me and he goes, I'm working on a project. We want to take another pass at the final edit and try and finish the post-production. Is there anything you can help me with? And so I checked it out and brought on one of the editors we work with. And it's this beautiful story of these sisters that are kind of taking a journey to reclaim their heritage in a really special way. And it's funny and sweet and heartbreaking all at once. And they just wanted to go through and see if they could, if there was anything we could do to punch up some of the comedy of it, find a couple more moments, and then help sort of take it all the way through the final steps of getting the sound mix right and getting it color corrected and, delivering them a final piece they were really happy with. And the 3 stars of the movie also wrote it together, and they're just these amazing women. I was so lucky to get to help out with it.
So it's a passion project, it's Mexican American, and we'd like to see it. How can we see it?
I believe it is online. I can't remember where it's on right now. I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Okay, we will send you all an email with a follow-up where you can see all of Kip's shows and movies. And now this is last but certainly not least on my list. It's a series that I adore, Shrinking. Tell me about Shrinking, because I don't know if you've all seen it. Have you seen Shrinking? It's fabulous, right? And if you haven't, you should.
Shrinking is close to my heart. This one, I talked about wanting to feel like that ownership over something. That's a show that I've gotten very close to. I line produce it and help oversee the post. So I'm very deep in it all the way through, and I'm lucky enough to get to hang out with our cast, who are just the most amazing people, and it's just a fun show that doesn't sound like it should be funny when you hear the original pitch. When Bill went in and pitched a show about, a therapist whose wife died and was depressed and crawling out of the darkness, and it was going to be really funny. With Jason Segel, everybody, thankfully Apple was like, yeah, we get it, it'll be fun. And, and then we got Harrison Ford to be a part of it, and Jessica Williams, and Krista, and Michael Urie, who's just a gem, Ted McGinn, like every one of them shows up every day, and they're so funny, and they're the nicest people, and it's just a joy to work with them. And I think that comes across, it comes across in the final. You can tell they like being around each other. You can tell they enjoy, having fun together, and it's a lot of fun. It's a really special place.
I think the moral of the story is don't go to film school. Study something, right?
Something. Enjoy college.
They're like, yeah, enjoy college. But also, you said something to me over the phone when we were preparing this talk that I loved, and that I think should be recorded and burned in everyone's memory, which is every time you had a role in your mind, you said, I can't possibly do the same thing next year. And you'd say to the person who was going to potentially give you a job, you say, I've got this other job, but I can't possibly come back and do the same thing. What was it inside you that made you do that? Or explain, I don't know, to everyone how you create that sort of sense of confidence or gumption or whatever it was.
Blind hope is a lot of it. What you're talking about, there was a moment I had, look, the guys that ran Scrubs have always been very good to me since I showed up the first day as a PA. And have, the producer of that, Randall, ended up becoming my mentor and very good friend. He married my wife and I. Bill has sort of helped guide my career since I first showed up in town. And I worked with them for a couple years and got to be a coordinator. I moved up just a little bit. And I left for those couple years to try and get another job. And that's when Scrubs had their 9th season. So I called them up to come back. And they're like, we'd love for you to come be our coordinator for both shows. And I was like, that sounds really cool. And I'd love to come back, but I want to be the supervisor. I want to try and move up here. And they're like, I don't know. Like, we really like you to do this one. And I was like, I can't come back and do the same thing. If I'm going to come back, I really want to move up. And so I ended up getting an offer to do another show that didn't sound as fun or wasn't as cool, but I possibly would get the credit there. And so I called them, I go, I don't want to do this, but if I can't get it here, I have to go try and get it there. Like, all right, let us think about it. So they called me back and gave me the opportunity. And it was just a moment of realizing that sometimes the only way, you do have to have a blind belief in yourself that you're going to really show up and get it done. But then that, sometimes it takes a little bit of a push to actually get that thing that, you really believe in.
And that's very important. I'm very glad we've recorded that for posterity. It reminds me of Judd Apatow says, when you're a director, you have to be somewhat delusional. Because you have to believe you're very good at something that you've never done, right? So, and you're not delusional, but the blind hope.
There's a lot of that going around.
And so, look, I wrote on my card, what's next? What's next? Good. So before we open up the floor, if you want to talk about what's next, it does seem like there's a lot on your plate.
Look, we're in a very very lucky position right now. I'm very grateful. We're very busy, and a lot of these shows that we've been making for a couple of years are actually all happening. So, Shrinking just started. Scrubs comes out next month. We have a new show on HBO with Steve Carell that comes out in March.
Exciting.
That's really fun. And then Ted Lasso in the summer, and then Bad Monkey after that. So we're really excited about all these shows coming back out. We're having a lot of fun putting them together. And really at this point, it's just trying to get everything done. That's kind of the mode we're in at the moment.
Well, I'm sure there are plenty of film students floating around that will be begging you to carry your copy on set, in post, anyway. So let's open up. If there are any questions, I can probably walk this microphone around the room. Or, Yvonne?
Hi.
Hey.
I'm Ivan. I have a biology degree.
It's just
Maybe that's it.
that's the magic sauce right there.
Yeah.
I've been producing films for a few years, about 16 now. My 11th was the one that got mentioned earlier, Mistura. And we have a few, not too many maybe, but hopefully someday more friends in common, like Cristo. And I believe the last Three Sisters, which I highly recommend as a film, I believe it's on Stars.
Thank you.
so many of my favorite shows are the ones you worked on, but since taking into account the theme of today's conversation, I think there's a lot of pressure when you're young, starting out, and making the right decisions, including studying the right thing, going to the right school. We both share that we clearly didn't know we wanted to do this at first. So
100%.
maybe you can expand a little bit more on what that journey is like, how you think about it now, looking back, of
How you make those decisions
Yeah.
along the way?
yes, and how important it is or isn't to study the right thing, go to the right place, or how do you find your way if you're not sure what you want to do when you're starting. I think that's a lot of the topic of today's conversation, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks so much. You know, I think that you probably had a lot of the same sort of moments that I've had along the way. You know, one of the things I was telling Isabel the other day was that I feel like all of these phases of your life, I went there, I feel like I went to them expecting one outcome, and the outcome that came from them, how it served where we end up, was drastically different, in a good way, you know? We went at a boarding school up in Connecticut that I went to when the thinking was that's gonna get you into an Ivy League school and all of these things. Didn't happen. Guys, I went up there, I barely survived, and I got into North Carolina State. But instead of getting into an Ivy League school and all that, I made a friend that I worked with that opened up my eyes to how to even get into the entertainment industry. And I learned a lot of independence and how to learn and how to work hard, stuff that I probably wouldn't have gotten as much at home. You know, I go to NC State thinking I'm going to be a computer scientist and going to be a programmer and going into tech. And instead I ended up, you know, changing to biology. Again, it was a lot about solving problems. I ended up being the president of our fraternity and learned how to herd cats. It was a big part of my experience. And you'd be amazed how much that herding cats ends up being like making a film. You know, so that ended up being a big part of what I was able to take with me there, you know, and I think a lot of it, like I think you've been through, is making decisions and seeing how they play out and trying to go with them, you know, and just sort of roll with each thing that you run into, make the best choice you can, and know that that was the right one, because that's the only one you can deal with.
Are there any more questions? Yes, over here. Sasha won Best Youth Film last year, one of the best youth films.
Congrats, Sasha.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Sasha, and I might have to get a biology degree now. But no, I just had a quick question. So, when making shows for like huge companies like Apple and stuff like that, did you see any big differences than working with smaller companies or independently?
You know, it's funny, so many of the principles and the way you do things is the same. There's sometimes more rules and more people involved, you know, it's a little more checkpoints. But one of the things that I think I've learned a lot from working with Bill, who's been doing it successfully for so long, is all these people are on the same team. You know, everyone's trying to collaborate to get the best product out there. And if you can find ways to, you know, bring people in and work together, you ultimately end up making the best version of whatever it is.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Yes?
Thank you. Hi, Jorge. This is gonna sound really fake, but I also have a biochemistry degree.
All my plants are working out just like
Yes, based in LA, making some projects myself, and I guess sort of piggybacking off this question, what I wanted to ask you was, what's your gear switch almost between, because you've been working with short films as recently as this year, that's what I was reading on IMDb. But, and then also working on all these projects, like what's the gear switch? So what skills do you think you're implementing on these small projects, you yourself personally, versus on these larger projects?
That's a great question. You know, I think one of the things for me ends up being that it's a little like I was saying to Sasha, they're all very similar. What ends up happening right now, based on what we're doing, is the shows we're putting together are really busy. There's a lot going on, and so I'm having to use more sort of delegating sort of on the other projects. but it all comes from a place of, oh, this is how we're doing things here, this is how I'm doing things here, this, and you take those and you go, I'm not gonna be able to do this over here, so you are gonna do what, do it this way, and here's how it works, just do this, and so it's a lot of communication ends up being such a big part of it. That was, I think, one of the biggest reasons I ended up wanting to produce more than write code is it's all about communicating. And if you can communicate with all the department heads and all the talent and all the people you're working with, you end up finding a way to get there, even when you're switching between different sort of types of projects.
Any more questions? Yes.
Hi, my name is Adam. I did not have a biology degree. I went to school for television and journalism, but I have a background in documentaries and nonfiction content. So this has been amazing. We actually were watching Shrinking last night, so thank you for the third season. I think part of my work in documentaries is finding the truth in, I often say like reality is stranger than fiction, but watching Shrinking, you're getting at themes that are so deep and real and feel like you're teasing out aspects of, that we don't really talk about in life. I'm curious, as a producer, do you approach projects with that in mind, talking about deeper themes in that sense?
Look, Shrinking, all the credit goes to our writers. Those guys spend so much time working out these very densely woven stories and digging deep into the sort of ethos of these characters and what they're going through and stuff. So they get all the credit for that goes there. I think when, in making anything, and especially if you're making documentaries, you're trying to find the most honest version of it and the sort of revelation of people sharing things that maybe they wouldn't have shared otherwise, and helping them share it in a way that connects with people that maybe it wouldn't have connected without being able to kind of craft it into a bigger story. We went through that on that first documentary we made. We interviewed a dozen kids, and a crazy part of it was we found out right before the film was going to be released that the woman that ran the school coached kids on their stories. And there was a number of them that had been sort of, if not totally fabricated, were definitely told in a certain way. And we froze. We had this moment of total panic. And we called the kid that I mentioned from the very beginning that was on camera, who had become a very good friend. And we said, we need you to be very real with us right now. These are the students we featured in the film. Are those real, or were these? And he goes, no, those were all legit. And it's interesting because of 9 kids that we interviewed, 4 of them end up in the film. Those 4 were all real, and it's a little bit of that truth is what comes through. I think that's that honesty and those types of. There's something that you can't always put your finger on, but that's what makes those stories special. And so I think that you approach that the same, whether it's scripted or unscripted or whatever you're putting together.
Thanks so much.
I think there's a question behind you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm pretty sure I failed biology, so.
As we're taking a side turn here,
Sorry guys. So my question is, I started my film career later in life. I'm, in my 40s. And what I want to know is, how do you get to all the networking, going in for distribution when you don't have like a billboards attached to the project, or even all the history that you have? Like, what is your best advice for that?
It's really hard, and you're talking about what I think is some of the hardest stuff, because it's the things I don't have an answer to. If I could crack that one, all of these projects I do on my own time, we'd have them out everywhere you can find them. It's extremely hard, especially in today's landscape. People are not buying, even from established showrunners and creators. They're not buying stuff. So let alone people that don't have the history as much. I think that I'm hopeful personally, with only just my own gut behind it, that there is sort of a coming wave of indie type stuff where I think because the pieces will already be made, there's not as much risk attached to buying things that exist already. So I'm hopeful that things like that are going to see a little bit of a resurgence. But the networking part of it is incredibly hard, and I feel like it's, for everybody, it's hard to know when you're talking to people how legit any of it is, until you're actually in the trenches trying to do something with it. And we all wrestle with that, and even when something's legit, you're talking to the right person and there's interest, there's still that ginormous step of actually executing it. And I'm sad to say I don't have a real good answer for you. other than just to keep, I think the thing that we're all doing is you keep pounding the pavement, you keep trying to meet as many people as you can, you keep putting out your content and hoping that it finds the audience. And if you find your audience, hopefully it organically grows from there.
Thank you.
I think we should celebrate Jamie because she produced Blue Zeus, which was our opening night film. It's beautiful. And she found her audience. This is not a shameless plug at the Biscayne Film Festival, so there's that. I mean, I think
Congrats.
that's one of the goals of the festival is for the artists to meet their audience. And I think what's incredible is that now the audience has been able to meet the artists behind the shows that they love so much. So this has been a real treat. Thank you so much, Kip. I think a big round of applause.
Thank you, that's
This will live on YouTube on the Biscayne Film Festival channel, and we're ending now, even though we could spend another hour talking, because at 2 o'clock, we're changing locations up to the Island Room, which is the second floor of the community center, for News Without a Newsroom, which is a fascinating documentary. I hope to see you all there. And we have the most incredible panel of TV journalists and all kinds of very, very experienced people who are going to discuss this era of news that we live in. It's going to be fascinating. I hope to see you all there. Thank you so much.